There we go. Yeah, we talk about it now every single time, but we had one podcast we did where we did not record any of it. So
forgot to hit the record button. And it was with like multiple world champion Hanette Stack, somebody I tried to get on the podcast for forever. And we didn't realize it till we were almost done with the podcast after almost a 2-hour conversation.
That's horrible.
It was terrible.
She goes, "Hey, normally it says like recording."
We're like, oh God.
That's horrible.
It was terrible. We won't do that ever again.
Well, congratulations on another great event at Combat Night Jacksonville.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I feel like right now somebody should be yelling Duval.
Duval.
I'll be honest, I never thought that was like a real thing. I didn't know where that came from. And then we were watching, was it The Good Place? And they got a character in there
who's supposed to be from Jacksonville.
And he throws it out there like during certain scenes when somebody references like the Jaguars or something like that. You know, he pops out with the Duval.
Yeah, the energy there in Duval is awesome. They support their own for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So how did you get involved in MMA? How did you get involved in Combat Night?
Well, so I always assumed. So in the beginning, I was just assumed that like Combat Night was your first. Then when we were doing an interview with Mitchell, he's like, yeah, man, first time I ever met him, I was a fighter. He goes, and Richard was actually the matchmaker for a different promotion. And I was like, oh shit. So
in MMA or promotional stuff?
Both.
Well, I got into MMA I would say summer of 99.
Okay.
I grew up just a huge pro wrestling fan and football fan. And when I started getting into some scuffles, I always liked the Steiner brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with pro wrestling, but
yeah. Eric Steiner, and he had the big good. Didn't one of the Steiner brothers become part of the Hart Foundation for a while?
No, it was when they broke up, he was like a Big Papa Pump or something.
Oh, yeah.
So I love those guys, and to be honest, I loved wrestling, but I was kind of a late bloomer, and the good Lord didn't bless me with the best genetics. So I was like, I am never wearing a fucking. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
You're fine.
I will never wear that singlet. So I chickened out of wrestling, but would obviously wrestle with my friends and stuff like that. But I love the Steiners anyway. I'll cut that kind of short. So when I did start getting in some scuffles, I would hit these belly-to-belly suplexes or German suplexes, you know. So one day I'm at the video store back in the day when you actually had to go to a store and rent cassette. I'm sure some of your younger viewers are going to be like, what the hell is that? But that was the best time of my life, going to the video store. And I was in the wrestling section and I saw this Ultimate Fighting, and it had the NC-17 on it.
Yeah.
So had to get help with renting one of those. And I watched that and was just mind blown because I grew up such a wrestling fan and a boxing fan. I didn't realize what real fighting consisted of. So I would just watch that for a few years. When I graduated high school, internet was actually a new thing too, in the late 90s. So I started looking up how to get involved, and I found a school in Valdosta, which is about an hour away from me. So went over there and started training, and man, I just fell in love with it. I realized day one that there is nothing else I want to be involved in. I just love it. I was consumed with it, obsessed with it. Always watching video, tape trading, Japanese stuff, Brazilian stuff. The first jiu-jitsu lesson I really got was some VHS with Murillo Bustamante and Mario Sperry. They couldn't even speak English, you know, but there, you know, it's like, oh, you hold the wrist here. Oh, you underhook here. So we started learning that stuff and just working it in the backyard on mattresses. They would just be these gross mattresses. They got on and leaves. Weren't too educated on ringworm and things like that back then.
Yeah.
We get out there and just for hours just try this crazy stuff that we had no idea what we were doing. But finally, we'll get to 99 now. So then I started looking in the internet, and I found a school in Valdosta, and that was Valdosta Martial Arts Center with James Corbett, and he had just had a guy, Jonathan Wazorek, had actually choked out Dan Severn, and I was like, oh God, well,
Wow.
that's the place for me. So started the journey there, and just never looked back. That's all I've done. Almost a quarter of a century now. That's insane.
Yeah, my story's kind of similar, except about 10 to 15 years earlier. So, because yeah, I grew up loving pro wrestling, Beaver, California side, and so like WWF and things of that nature, and Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Tito Santana, I remember the debut of Hulk Hogan when he first made his debut, and Andre the Giant. I actually used to go to live events up at Arco Arena. Now I don't think it's Arco anymore. It's but up in Sacramento, used to go to live events up there to go watch pro wrestling. And then me and my buddies would like one of the guys they did up their garage to be like a spare living room, and so we'd go out there and we'd push the couch, push the couch off to one side, and we're gonna do like off the top rope. We grab all the cushions from the and hold them out in front of you and jump off the back of the couch and splash on top of the person below. I mean,
that's awesome.
That was in the early to mid 80s when I was doing that stuff. But we used to have a blast,
Yeah, that was my whole life was pro wrestling. But then when I saw little ass Hoist Gracie just handling people, I was like, what is this?
Now, in the very beginning, a lot of people thought the UFC was fake, just another pro wrestling, like like what they call strong style in the Japanese, I mean, like a strong style pro wrestling. They thought it was fake. They didn't think it was real.
Do you remember the Japanese league? It was like UWF, I believe.
Yeah.
It was like half pro wrestling, half strong style.
Right. Well, because that's
I started questioning it a little bit, but
Sakuraba came from that strong style where it's like real techniques just done for theatrical embellishment. I mean, but it was real. I mean, like you watch some of the wrestling moves and watch like sleeper holds, and you're like, no, that ain't real. I mean, once you start to learn like a true rear naked choke, you're looking at it going, no, they're missing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that would never do anything. But then you look at some other techniques and you're like, no, that's, when you do them on your friends, you were like, holy crap, like, that actually hurt. That wasn't fake. And then like Sakuraba, like I said, he came from that strong style Japanese pro wrestling, and a lot of guys made that transition. So I remember when UFC 1 and UFC 2 hit the scene, a lot of people were thinking that was fake, that was just a new type of pro wrestling trying to hit the scene in the US, because the US hadn't really seen a strong style, wrestling. Most of that was from Japan. And that was a big eye opener. Once people, Patrick, a lot of people come back to UFC 2 when they watched Pat Smith versus Scott Morris. That was like their eye opener when they were like, what the? I mean,
yeah. Two was actually the first one I ever saw.
Two is the one that most people refer to.
Yeah. Seems like where I lived, there was like a late release because a couple months later, one was on the shelf, and then I watched. And 2 was brutal though. Some of those finishes, I was just like, wow.
Yeah. I think you're correct on that. I think two actually hit the scene before 1. Like if you had seen 1, you were in an elite group that had some access to stuff. Because I do think the video for UFC 2 hit wide spread,
release
before UFC 1. Because I remember that was Blockbuster Video for people out there that
Blockbuster was some of the best times of my life, going to renting wrestling or UFC or some video games on the weekend with the fellas.
Yeah, which absolutely blew me away that Blockbuster had it and nobody else did.
Yeah.
I mean, that was unheard of. I mean, because Blockbuster was like, compared to other video stores that have that weird room in the back that nobody ever actually looks at, but Blockbuster never had that. Blockbuster was like the family video store,
Right.
And I mean, for them to pop up with UFC 2 was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Man, you're right about that Patrick Smith, he stands out the most. I feel like that was like, once I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, this is real fighting.
Yeah. Like I said, that first fight, Scott Morris, Pat Smith, that was the eye opener for a lot of people.
And I remember being young, like they would do the little build up right before the match, and they were just making it out like Scott Morris was like a real life ninja, and I was just like, oh my God, ninja, and then he just gets annihilated.
Well, and I remember in the back of Black Belt magazine and all these others, Scott Bussey's Warriors International was like, they would advertise all the time, that they're looking for the baddest dudes. They're looking for, for all this stuff. And here's Scott Morris representing, this group that was, Black Dragon type stuff. And then I don't know what ever happened to them. I mean, they,
don't either.
There's a lot of, I mean, obviously
was man, because just the little bit of grappling Pat had it made it such a dominant finish, and then to see him over the next few events go against guys that really had grappling, and it was real eye-opening. Like, man, if you just have a little bit of grappling, it goes a long way. But man, what an eye-opening thing, man! The where we are today, like UFC is just crazy. I found this YouTube channel this Croatian kid's putting out, and he keeps releasing the old UFCs and the old IVCs and Sengoku, just old random stuff like that. And you just watch those guys fights, and it's just like, man, I watched some amateurs debut the other night that would probably win UFC 1.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, and then that's the thing. Like, I've got a box at the house that's all old VHS tapes of. I got lucky enough. My parents lived out in the middle of nowhere. Actually, we lived about 15 to 20 minutes outside of Lockford, California, which was when they announced the Lions Den. Lockford, California is where they announced Ken Shamrock from. And so I never trained with Ken or Frank. I have friends that did and friends that do, and guys I went to high school with that we trained Taekwondo that became part of the original Lions Den team. But my parents got one of those big ass satellite dishes. And so early, I was able to get up on a bunch of the UFCs, Pride, the early shows was Extreme Fighting Championships. That's where Bustamante and Mario Sperry and Conan Sylvia and those guys, that's where they kind of got their start from on that the US scene. Obviously, they were fighting in Brazil prior to coming to the States, but I mean that's their US launch, and so I was able to get all that stuff, and so for the longest time I was like the crack dealer, for my local area, because I was getting access to all the stuff that nobody else was.
I was really into the tape trading too, man. So if I'd run up on a guy like you, it was just you could get all that old Japanese wrestling. And where we lived, I feel like it was a year behind on UFC. Like, you were probably watching like 7 when I was watching 3, because it just seemed real behind in Georgia.
Which is interesting, because I mean Georgia hosted a couple.
Yeah, in Augusta they did a couple.
Yeah.
That was crazy. The first, I remember the first time training with my coach James, and him telling me about the first time he had met Coleman, and he was like, "Yeah, met Coleman." He was like, "What a beast!" And he was throwing everybody out of his locker room and cussing his wife out and punching and headbutting walls, and then he went out, won a world title over Severance.
Yeah,
I remember sticking out, him saying that Coleman was an absolute wild man.
Well, we were in our area. MMA was illegal, so I mean, But yet at the same time, we're hearing, like, again, we live down the middle of nowhere. And we're hearing from people that, hey, there's UFC qualifiers going on up in Jackson, California. Again, we're like, Jackson, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, ain't nothing going on up in Jackson. You know, Jackson's a nice town, don't get me wrong.
But they have an Indian casino. So that's what.
Okay.
But small though.
Small casino.
At the time, it was a very small, I think they were either Miwok or whatever. And so we're hearing this rumor that they're doing UFC qualifiers, you know, up at this, you know, Jackson,
wasn't it Rebel Fight League?
No, it wasn't. But so we're hearing these rumors, and then we're like, all right, we gotta, because now the rumors being substantiated when her mom, who works at one of the local hospitals,
a doctor she worked with, is their ringside doctor.
And so we're like, whoa, wait a minute. This is like getting real. Like, you know, we're now substantiating some things from reputable people. So we start going up there, and literally they're doing fights in the parking lot of they have this little hotel, real small hotel, but they would clear the parking lot, put the cage up in the middle, throw them at night, you know, on like a Friday night or a Saturday night, rent out the rooms of the hotel. You know, I think it was either a 2-story or 3-story building, so that the patios or the balconies would overlook the cage, you know, and that would get filled. The parking lot would be filled. And that's the first time I ever met Chuck Liddell.
Yep.
Was in that parking lot. Actually,
he almost got into a fight.
With him, but
in that parking lot.
But it was in that parking lot. It was the first time I ever saw Chuck Liddell. That parking lot was the first time I got to see Vernon Tiger White, which was a guy I went to high school with and trained with. That was Ken Shamrock's first Lions Den individual. He fought in Pride. Of that nature. I saw him fight David Terrell at that Indian casino, you know, in that parking lot. You know, but you know, it was interesting because at this time period, you know, it's illegal in the state of California. And so we were like, UFC's never coming here. You know, we're like, if the UFC ever came close, we were still looking at the UFC as like a east of the Rockies kind of thing. That we just weren't going to get a chance to really go live, you know, unless we, you know, something happened, like we were able to travel or they somehow came to us. So we just made the best of all the local events we could go to,
which were all at Indian casinos, because
all of Indian casinos. Yeah. But the law enforcement sometimes would you know, put up a show of force at the entrance of the casino, trying to like drive people away. You know, like, hey, we're going to arrest you. You're like, you have no jurisdiction. You can't, you know, but a lot of people didn't know that. And so some of them would just disappear. Then there would be the underground fights that actually would happen in somebody's gym or something of that nature.
Smokers. That's right.
Well, truly speaking, I mean, a smoker only exists if other non-smoker options exist. I mean, other than that, it was a fight. So,
right.
Man, so
some of the early shows I used to do in Georgia, we would do them on military bases because kind of the same. You know, is there was no jurisdiction from the actual popo.
Right. So you could get the base commander or whomever to sign off on it. You're golden. I mean.
Oh, and they loved it. They loved to be like, don't tell us what to do. You know, like we're gonna if we want to. You know.
Well, and that's like the whole thing, because at the Indian casinos, it's, you know, because federal law is deferred to local, and on the Indian casinos, they are the local law. It's the same as if they were the state of California. So anything deferred to the state, to the state level, they were the ones that got to decide. Prize fighting is deferred to the state level, you know. So, but now the other part though is a lot of people didn't understand. They thought by going to tribal lands that they could get away with anything, and they didn't realize. I mean, the tribal police don't play.
Yeah.
I mean. And
we were at one event and it was intermission or just before intermission. And one of our friends goes to the bathroom and
bunch of porta potties and whatever.
And he comes back, he goes, I don't know what's going on, but all the cops are stretching under the bleachers. Like they got their billy clubs out.
Yeah.
They're like going through the whole stretching.
He's like, there's a dozen of them down there looking like they're
Stretching.
warming up. For
They're warming
someone
up.
to go down.
And
Oh.
sure enough, intermission happens, and all of a sudden, chairs start flying in the lower levels.
Oh, they just came out and just started leveling
Just
people.
billy clubbing to the back of the knees, like pop, pop, pop,
No,
taking people out.
My favorite, this was actually a WEC at Lemoore, California at the Tachi Palace. This is before Zuffa bought it. Crowd is probably about 3,000 to 4,000 people. I mean, it's a big group. And you know, the commercials, you know, Dawn takes grease out of your way and they show the little drop and the grease goes. So we're up in the bleachers and we see this chair like a Frisbee flying like this. And when it hits, whoosh, I mean, and then that was it. I mean, so
chairs started flying, people started flying.
My favorite was watching this dude. He's got this guy in the ground. He's got a chair over his head and is getting ready, takes a billy club right to the back and just crumbles. I mean, like I said, they came in swinging and they did not care. I mean, that was for like, especially for the WEC, because a lot of people don't know the WEC prior to Zuffa buying it and then ultimately moving it into the UFC. But I mean, man, WEC.
What was that other promotion? They used to always do Tachi Palace as well. I know WEC, but there was another promotion ran there all the time.
The WEC was running out of there, and then Zuffa bought it and moved it. They moved it to Vegas, and then the Tachi Palace tried to rekindle those fights kind of on their own.
Yeah,
which kind of did okay, but not the same as the original WEC.
Yeah,
I mean, because think about it, they had Frank Shamrock fighting there. They had Rico Rodriguez. I mean, that was like right now everybody's talking about Bellator. You know, it's like if somebody's contract becomes, you know, whatever in the UFC, live and move over to Bellator. You know,
yeah.
WEC was kind of like that. You know, it's like some of the guys who are no longer in the UFC would make their way over to the WEC as a headliner. You know, and like I said, they were getting live crowds of 5,000 to 7,000 people in the middle of a field.
Yeah,
I mean, it was awesome. I used to love going to the WEC.
Man, I had goodness out in California. There was so much cool shit out there. King of the Cage, Gladiator.
Yep.
Well, we used to say all the time, it was interesting that in a state in which MMA was illegal,
there were so many.
We hosted
events.
more events than than anything.
Yeah.
Christian was going to events when he was like 6, 7 years old.
Nice.
Dave was taking him.
So I got him to meet, so way back, again, WEC. So I would drive 3 hours, somewhere in there, maybe 3.5 to get to the WEC. And that's the first time I ever met the Tap Out crew with Charles Lewis and those guys. So the first time, you know, they're selling shirts out of the trunk of their car. Couple events later, they got a small trailer. Couple events later, they got this, like, you know, beat up RV, you know, hand spray painted Tap Out on the side, things of that nature. And so before they hit big and everything else, you know, I got pictures of Christian on Charles's shoulders. Yeah, because I was kind of building, I wouldn't say we were friends, but I was building a good acquaintance with him. I mean, hell, we used to sell Tap Out in the gym originally in California, and I would call Charles up and give him my order. I'd be like, dude, I want to get 20 of this shirt and 20 of that shirt. He's like, got you, brother. You know, and then, you know, the stuff would show up. And then one day I call up and somebody else answers the phone. And I'm like, yeah, I want to place an order. And they're like, okay, well, I'll send you an application.
They were like, fuck.
I was
Okay,
like, yeah.
we're done.
I was like, application. So they sent me the application. It's like, they want to, you know, you got to place a minimum order of like $1,000 a month for product. They want to see a picture of your, you know, I got a 1,200 square foot academy in Valley Springs, California. You know, I'm like, I don't even sell $1,000 worth of merch, you know, in 6 months. You know?
Right.
I'm like, but it was the bat symbol for the times, though. I mean,
It was. It really was.
You saw a dude rocking Tap Out. That was like the first non-denominational cross enemy lines kind of thing that you could fly colors, saying that you did jujitsu and MMA without stepping on anybody else's toes. Like, it didn't matter. You could be in a whole new state, city, whatever. If you saw a tap out, you just go, hey man, where do you train?
Yeah, exactly. It really was a flag. It really was. Man, in the South, I'll specifically say like Georgia and Tennessee, you would kind of get the ugly looks if you had the tap out stuff on. Do you remember the one, again, excuse my language, but the back it just said like represent motherfucker.
Yeah.
So we all bought those shirts. We thought we were gangsters. And we're at this tournament in Tennessee. We're literally, they walk us out to this gymnasium. So you're like 2 fights ahead. So you're waiting, these guys fighting, you're waiting over in the corner under the basketball to walk to the ring. And here comes the promoter with security, and they're basically telling all of us we have to take the shirts off.
Oh man.
We don't have any other shirts. And they're just like, I can't believe you'd wear something like that. And it's just funny how culture is different. I imagine if you were rocking California, somebody's just like, oh, a brother in arm. But in Tennessee, when you're there to whoop the local boy's ass, they don't want you wearing tap out.
well, originally their website wasn't even tap out. It was inyourface.com.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, they weren't even rocking they didn't have the tap out website. And then when you would go to that website, it was all asses and stuff like that. I mean, they were definitely selling on a different ideology.
I remember that video they put out. It was so weird. It was just weird music and just Charles smacking a girl's ass in a bedroom and laughing hysterically, and then it's like cutting to somebody getting their ass kicked, and it was just like, I don't know what's going on, but this shit's fucking cool.
Well, and then was On the Mat used to put out videos kind of the same. Theirs would have stuff like Matt Byrne, that was the name of one video. I think there was another one that was like Ringworm or something like that. It was the same. Theirs was more jiu-jitsu footage, but intermixed with like travel footage of them going different places and guys like drunk and passed out on beds and people fucking with them and things of that nature. And then tap out was like the MMA version of that same thing. They were crazy guys though, man. They were.
They were. I've heard some pretty wild stories. Man, it's weird where we're at right now. Just a little bit of stuff we're talking about. It's like, man, there's just a couple whole generations that have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Well,
there's like tap out, that shit they wear in like WWE a few years ago.
You mean tap out? I saw that at Ross.
Yeah. Like you said, that logo back then was just like, yo, you were in the cult. Like in those early days, before it was mainstream and you could just buy it anywhere, like you had to pick one of those shirts up at an event, or met these people face to face to get this merchandise. I remember another big one back then, because I kind of liked them too, was like Full Contact Fighter.
Yep.
But
actually, I have
the gang. It was either like you're either a tap out guy or a Full Contact Fighter guy. That's how it felt back then a little bit.
I was both. But I have a stack of I didn't realize, like in the early days when I started training, we never took pictures. We never, one, it was actual film. So people, listening to things of that nature, they don't understand. Digital didn't even exist yet. That came out later. So we didn't take a lot of pictures. We just trained. And then, so I don't have a whole lot of memorabilia that really goes back. But then I found, though, interestingly enough, that once MMA hit the scene, apparently I was a fucking pack rat. I was like hoarding things. I didn't even realize I was doing it, because I used to like if I got like Black Belt magazine or things of that nature when I was younger, I mean, I'd read it, I'd kind of keep it, whatever. It was no big deal. I'd find stacks of Grappling magazine, Full Contact Fighter.
We still have them. They're in.
I won a Full Contact Fighter contest. I'm trying to think of what year this was. It was early 90s.
It was one of those caption contests.
So I have somewhere I have a full contact fighter hoodie, you know, and some other stuff, and I got a bunch of their because they were more like a newsprint, you know, style, like physical hard copy. It was more like a newspaper style.
It was. There'd be results in there for like events you didn't know were happening, but it's these amazing fighters. Like I remember I was a huge Pele fan, Jose Landy Johns.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that these humans fought each other. I knew who Matt Hughes was. I liked Matt Hughes. I liked Militich's crew. And I feel like if you ordered something, they would send you, like, the newspaper would come with any merch you ordered or anything like that. And I remember reading these old results, like Japanese results, and then there's a big picture, and it's Pele knocking out Matt Hughes, and I'm just like, Pele and Matt Hughes,
right?
Oh my God, just like mind blown that these
they were
fighting, and like where I live, we didn't even know about it.
Yeah, they were also the first ones that I knew of that had online results.
Yeah,
because there was Full Contact Fighter and Sure Dog. Those were for me the two. And to be honest with you, I can't remember which came first. I want to say Full Contact Fighter, but that may just be because that's what I saw first. I don't know if Sure Dog predates them, but like Jeff Sherwood and those guys at Sure Dog, they were the first one to have online forums for people to just have conversations.
Dave got in some major conversations with people.
The underground was where it was at. Eventually, what it turned to is.
But I loved Full Contact Fighter did something that none of the others did that I dug. They would typically, like for Pride, they would find the fighters a day or two afterwards and would get pictures in the lobby of the hotel or whatever of the bruising after the fight. Because some of the guys, they would look pretty good. Like I remember one of them, it was Kevin Randleman pulling up his shorts to show the bruising on the side of his leg from the fight, the night before. And you're looking at it going, oh shit, like I think that would have been a big eye opener for some people, to see the fighters the day. I mean, like see a person the day after a car crash. It's different than day of. I mean, that's when the swelling's really kicked in. That's when, the real bruising has started to show itself, and kind of like the real results. Everybody thinks that it's all just parties and shit like that. And most people had no clue the recovery that most fighters had to undergo, post-fight. They were riding the high that night. But
Christian's first 2 title wins, when he won the belt, we spent celebrating in the ER.
Yeah.
Well, one we thought was a broken jaw. Luckily, it turned out to not be.
Right. Yeah. One we thought he broke his jaw, and then one. What was that one? That was a.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But I mean, I remember going through one time. I mean, I did a hellacious day of fight, like marathon fighting. Jiu-jitsu, full contact. I mean, and. I went out that night. We had some beer and pizza and everything else, feeling great. And then I woke up the next day and I couldn't wash my hair. And I'm telling Melissa, I'm like, my head, I can't even move my hair. And she pulls my hair up, and it's like the whole right side of my head is black and blue. I took a couple of head kicks that at the time period you don't feel that stuff. I mean, or if you do, you probably lost. But I didn't feel it and everything else. We finished out the fight. I went undefeated for the evening and everything else. We're out celebrating, and then the next day, I mean, she's like, the side of my head's puffed out to here. It's all black and blue, and everything else. And as I didn't wash my hair, for like 2 days, waiting for my hair or my head to stop hurting so bad.
That's brutal.
And so what was the first event that you got a chance to be a part of?
Man, so the first like as a fan or like just being involved?
Just being involved.
Being involved. Well, like I mentioned, when I went to VMAC, James Corbett was actually doing smaller events with IKF, like regional kickboxing tournaments.
Okay. Yeah.
And it would be an MMA fight sprinkled in or a grappling match sprinkled in. They were coming along slowly with it in Georgia. There was really no jurisdiction for it. There was a guy, Mike Carlson. He's like a DEA or something like I said that wrong. District attorney. He really got the ball rolling to go ahead and legalize it. And so I came in right as that was kind of happening. So I was lucky to kind of be behind the scenes and as it started in Georgia. So like I say, he was doing his own shows regionally, and his main fighter had just taken out Severn. So it was really just working his events. They were IKF regionals. He had the Southeast region. They would so for you to go to the World Classic or whatever they call it nowadays, I call it a huge money grab. Shout out taking people's money for 40 years. You go. Anyway, I was just lucky to be involved with somebody who was really plugged in, because coming where we come from, like I said, there just wasn't much. And like the stuff you're talking about, I feel like we were always a year, maybe 2 behind. Like we weren't with the times in South Georgia. So luckily I was involved with them. And I just was helping him, it helped him, whether it was helping him run a locker room or, making phone calls or things like that. So I was just lucky to kind of get a little bit of education from him. And after a few years of training, a buddy of mine just wanted to do a show. And I just walked up to James and was like, hey, let's just say I had a little bit of money. How do I do one of these? And he kind of guided me down the path to get going. And we kind of had a split eventually. And I started my own school. And I was just like, well, I want to do these shows. So, man, I cut my teeth. That's for sure. I cut my teeth in business because first few events I did never made money.
Right.
Just really just basically paying for an education.
Yeah. And that's kind of typical for a lot of the people is, most people don't understand. I mean, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the dedication, and everything else that actually started MMA. It really goes to, if you want to have an example of what a real grassroots movement looks like, look at the success of MMA. Everybody holds up the UFC, and they're the big dog on the scene and everything else. But man, I'm telling you, the UFC MMA did not get legalized purely by what the UFC and the Fertitas and others did. You're talking about tens of thousands of rabid martial artists that rallied, locally in their state, and online and everything else to really make this. And I think tens of thousands is probably a small number. I think there are more but the ones who actually got active in it, maybe tens of thousands. They just didn't have the voice, but they refused to be silent. I remember going to California State Athletic Commission meetings when they were trying to decide whether or not to legalize it, to go to that. I was a guy that would go to a Blockbuster or something of that nature and organize the special interest area to put all the MMA stuff together, and things of that nature. And it's amazing, all those people that I think truly made the movement happen. The UFC just happened to be the big dog that got the nod.
It's unfortunate too that and I'm guilty of it. There's just these thousands of people like you're talking about. They're never going to get credit for the work they put to make this what it is. There was just so many people fighting for it, and not just your health, but financially, just to fucking
everybody lost money in the beginning. Everybody did.
Just to be a part of it. Like I remember, so the first event, like I was just telling you, that James kind of helped, successful event. I wouldn't say it made money, but it didn't go to the negative. The second one, I'm on my own, just opened my own gym. This is my first promotion. And literally outside of friends and family, there may be being like 60 paying customers there.
Yeah.
And it was just like, man, what am I doing in this shit? And just, I've got investors and friends, money, and I'm just like, what am I, all this because I love this shit? Like,
Right.
I really had to think about it after that event, but I just was sitting around one day and said, you know what, I just love this shit. I'm obsessed with it. Like, I don't know that I could live a life without it. So I was just like, you know what, if it makes me happy and I got to live in a dumpster, that's what I'll do. But I always want to be a part of it. And
yeah,
the relationship you build with the athletes and coaches too is just the camaraderie is just so great. Like, I just loved every bit of it. I've never felt normal in my life, but the closest I've got to normalcy is being around martial artists, being around fighters, people that were like-minded, you know, made me
right.
feel like I know for a fact this shit's for me. Like, this is the life for me. It just took me a long time to figure it out where I could be somewhat successful or at least be able to pay my rent.
Right.
And the same thing with the gym, because I hate to keep shitting on where I live, you know, but like, I'm in South Georgia and it just, y'all do that there fighting. You know, it's like, no, it's martial arts. It's just, I've just been defending it and explaining it my whole life.
Right.
And
yep.
it wasn't very accepted,
No.
especially in South Georgia.
Well, I was small town. Now, granted though, my small town, or at least we kind of recognize ourselves more by the county than we do by the town, because the town's not really a town. It's not a true township.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no police, there's no fire, there's no, you know, mayor. It's you know, it's a town by name pretty much only. So we recognize ourselves by Calaveras County. That's actually where we were from. And hindsight, looking back now, granted, I've been in this stuff. I've been doing martial arts since '78, and then my group started dabbling in what would later become MMA before the UFC actually even hit the scene. And so when the UFC hit the scene, we were like, holy shit, this is kind of what we're already doing. You know,
Yeah.
Granted, we weren't doing it to the extent of, like, we didn't know jiu-jitsu, we didn't know anything. We knew ground fighting was a legit thing. We just didn't have that technical prowess to, you know, to do that. I mean, we looked like, you know, morons. But this is what we used to do, because we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Then I started getting deeper into it when the UFC hit the scene and everything else. Like I said, Ken Shamrock is in Lockford, California. Then my instructor meets Cesar Gracie. So now we're like, those are the two big names UFC won, Gracie and Shamrock. And we're like, I got partial connections to both. Now, granted, It was Cesar, not Hoist, but, you know, it's still Gracie at that time. I mean, you didn't care. And so in our little town, actually, the Lions Den was actually in Lodi, California, not Lockford. And so we had a lot of guys that, you know, our local legends that were basically kind of training in both. So we were learning the Shamrock leg locks and things of that nature. And then we were learning Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the like. And then the fights are going on. And I remember one day, my son is, God, I'm trying to think how old he is. He's young, 3 years old, maybe 4 years old, somewhere in there. And my mom pulls me aside one day and goes, I don't agree with the way you're raising your son. I'm like,
Ooh.
what? I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, having him around these fights and around all this stuff, I don't agree with that. I don't think it's right. I don't think you're, you know. And so, I mean, this was my own mom, you know, kind of hitting me with this little nugget of knowledge, you know, and I'm just like, fuck, you know. And, you know, now it's interesting because, you know, now he fights and they're all about supporting him for his fights. But in that moment, and actually, to be honest, I mean, for a long time, that was my local support. was non-existent. So the whole time we're running our own stuff, and we're trying, we're going to fights, and I got fighters that are doing this stuff. I mean, my own personal support system other than friends didn't really exist, and it is, the whole John McCain, human cockfighting, and all that stuff. And I'm like you said, I mean, I'm having to try to explain it to my own family. I'm like, it's not like that. It's not, this is not what the sport, is about. I mean, I feel like, I mean, you take your lumps, and there's these things that are going on, but I'm like, it's so not about that. The sport's not about the brutality. It looks brutal to you, but to those who are in it, it makes more sense to me than boxing does.
Yes.
I mean, again, and it's not to take away from boxing. I was a big boxing fan, a big wrestling fan, things of that nature. But just from the logical side of it, to me, to be able to make a person tap or something like that made more sense than to just punch him in the head until he can't take anymore.
It's beautiful. It sounds weird to say it like that, but the sport is beautiful. It's the truth. It's maybe one of the truest things on this planet.
Yeah.
It's just so pure, it's just, I just loved it, man. And it sucked to have to defend it so much. It's just like, it's not what you think. Like, they don't hate each other, which I think, honestly, I think it's worse now than it was way back then. Like back then, it still was, there was a lot of budo involved. It was about honor, respect. And nowadays, these kids that are making it, they're talking about, they're happy they're hurting people. They want to, they want to be disrespectful. It's all about talking shit on social media and being cocky and flexing, and like in our day,
I get
about honor. It was martial arts.
I get the selling tickets. I mean, I get that to an extent.
Sure.
But when it's no longer about selling tickets, fights are over. You're not selling tickets anymore. So why still the hostility? That makes no sense to me. And then in my opinion, there's always those certain lines. Like Connor, when he first started off, I think he did a pretty good job of not crossing that line.
Yeah.
But then the problem is anytime you push the envelope, where's it go? You got to outdo yourself. You got to outdo your last performance.
Pushing the bar.
And then pretty soon,
your wife's in my DMs, or I'm going to kill you. It's like, what are we doing, guys?
Right. And so now that's not
love and making millions of dollars. Why the fucking hostility? What are we doing here?
At the same time, it's also, I mean, while we're fighting each other or getting ready to fight each other, I get it, man. You're selling tickets and things of that nature.
Right.
But everybody, including including a fighter, when you clock out at the end of the day, you want to go back to just being a husband, being a father, being a whatever. You don't wear that moniker 24/7. It's not like hardcore rules. If I see you on site, it's on. It's like, pinfalls don't count anywhere. Like, I
mean, right?
I
can't wrap my mind around it. Like why it's gotten that way. That's crazy.
It's gotten crazy.
Like just saying Connor specifically, all the money he's made. Dude, I'd have been sitting there with my broke ass leg and wouldn't have said shit about his wife's DMs. I'd have been just like, I just made 40 million. I don't give a shit that my leg's broken.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, and I have conversations with people quite a bit where they defend Connor because of how much money he made. And they defend the antics because they're saying, well, he raised the bar for everyone. I tell him, I said, really? He raised the bar for everyone.
Yeah.
What's the starting contract?
Yeah, exactly.
Show me that went up.
Exactly.
Like if he raised the bar.
The bar for was act like him, and you might get a little something.
Right.
So now and not because I mean, to me, my product is number one to me. Combat Night's number one to me, and I'm not going to ever say that it's less than what it is in my mind. But we'll have guys that have one or two amateur fights, and they're talking the same shit, the same dialect. It's like, dude, you're a 1-on-1 amateur,
right?
Why are you talking like this? You literally are talking shit about selling tickets. Like, dude, I can pull up how many tickets you sold. You sold 4 tickets. Settle down, bro. Chill out. I want to kill somebody or bang somebody's old lady. It's like, relax, dude. It's not that serious. You're like in high school. You ain't even in college yet. Like, you're in high school talking like this. Like, you're not a professional. You're not making money. It's what it did. Like you're saying, though, it set the bar and set the example for hey, act like an idiot and you might get this stuff. But
right.
You still got to have the skills. You still got to have the ability. And man, Connor's just it's so weird when you start talking about Connor. It's like, because you gotta be honest, he was protected a little bit too.
Oh, big time. You can't
take away him ever knocking Aldo out the way he did. That's the biggest win he's ever had, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the fights to get him there, and even the getting him champ, it was selective matchmaking.
Well, the UFC, when it puts its marketing machine behind somebody. Now, obviously, the fighter's got to win the fights.
Sure.
But the UFC definitely throws opportunities to the people they like, regardless of who earned what. The one who earns it doesn't necessarily get it. In the UFC, they definitely like certain people. I like to use Frankie Edgar as my one of my biggest examples of the UFC champion that they never wanted. Name a single person who had more back-to-back title defenses when and we were just talking about this the other day. And so we pulled up his record, and it's like literally 3 people, 6 fights. Gray Maynard, rematch Gray Maynard. BJ Penn, rematch BJ Penn. Literally back to back, no time in between. Nobody, 6 fights in a row, 3 back-to-back title defenses against the same people. Like, tell me that's not them not wanting an individual in that seat. Demetrius Johnson, okay, they never used the word GOAT until Cejudo beat him.
Yeah.
Okay, the word GOAT never came out of their mouth. He was a dominant individual, cleaned out his entire division, but he was a quiet man. He would fight, go back to training. He wasn't the Conor. He wasn't antics outside the cage and everything else, but they wouldn't market it. And then Cejudo beats him, and they're like, oh, man, Cejudo just beat the GOAT. Like, you're using a term you never used while he was champion. You never did. And now you want to throw it around because now you want to put that on someone else that will do your media. And then what Cejudo do? He retires. Which I thought was kind of ironic, that when that all happened. But like same thing with Jose Aldo. Okay, they took him on how long of a press circus did they? Parade them around the world. Which that was never Jose Aldo.
Aldo was the most dominant fighter ever and never got to do anything like that.
He was the quiet guy. And then because Conor is about to fight him, they went on this whole media circus, which only favored Conor. It never favored. It took Jose away from what made him him. But and then they do the same thing with Ronda. There's only I think there's 2 UFC champions that never actually fought for their belt. Ronda was one of them. She was given the belt before she ever had a fight in the UFC. The WEC champions, when they made their transition, all had to fight for that first belt. I'm trying to think of who it is. It's either I know Ronda's one of them, and it was either Renan Barão or it was Jose Aldo is the other one. But there's 2 people in the UFC that were champions that never fought that first vacant title fight to, still there? There we go. I thought I lost you there.
Yeah, let me put.
And yeah, the
Battery's
UFC, man, put a huge marketing machine behind Ronda.
Whoop.
Yeah,
We're back.
we're back.
Okay. If I go this way,
Yeah, that works.
I had to plug in some power there. All right. Sorry
Like I said,
about that.
obviously, though, the fighters still got to win the fight, but opportunity certainly went to select individuals that that you could tell who the UFC backed in that moment. And that's one of those things I tell people quite often. It's like, in my opinion, okay, I'm just Joe Blow, whatever. But in my opinion, you want to see real MMA, go do a local show.
Yeah.
Go watch local.
I tell people that constantly that like I said, I'm gonna have to defend the sport till the day I die. I realize that, but it's like before you cast your judgment, like come to an event just once. Just come to one with a clear mind and just watch it for what it is, and most of the time it works out pretty good, like it's people realize it's not what they think it is. It's not just people beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
This is there's so much more involved.
Well, as I tell people, like, go to a local show. Okay. Now, in that crowd, go find me a casual fan, a person who's there just because they love the fights, and they're not there because they know somebody on that card. Like, everybody there feels connected to one of the people that's about to step in that cage or ring.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a different feel. When you go to a UFC, and trust, I mean, UFCs are fun. The energy within that room. But now, what percentage of that room is actually connected to a fighter?
Yeah.
I mean, small percentage.
Very
small percentage.
Yeah.
Go to that local show. Like I said, now find me a casual fan. Almost 99.9% of every person in one of those seats is directly connected to one of the people in that cage. And that's a different feeling. I mean, that's a different feeling. You feel the win. I mean, the casual fan of the UFC, when they just want a good fight, they like their person they're watching fight. They want them to win. But at the end of the day, they really just want to be entertained. And when you're sitting in a crowd at a local fight and you turn to the person next to you and it's somebody's mom or somebody's wife, or there's somebody's kids that they got somebody in there and you're going, hey, who you got fighting on the card tonight? They're like, oh, well, I've got so-and-so. And like, well, I'm here with so-and-so. And then I always made it a point, whichever one I was at, I would tell them, say, hey, look, I'm like, I would meet everybody in my area and find out who they were with. One, because I want to make sure I didn't talk shit on nobody that I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Because inadvertently, I'm also there to enjoy some fights. I don't want to say something about, like if something happens in the cage and you're like, oh shit, so-and-so, he's not lifting, he's not keeping his hands up or whatever. I don't want the people next to me getting mad. But at the same time, I'll tell them, say, look, I'm like, your boy's going up against this guy. I don't know this guy. I'll root for you guys. We'll become for a brief moment. We'll become part of you guys.
Yeah.
We'll celebrate with you. We'll cheer them on. And like I said, and that's a different feeling. It's a way different feeling. And then in a win, you get to see their excitement, and in that loss, you get to see also that connection. That to them, that fight, it's not superstardom, but it meant something to them too.
Sure.
That's something I think is different.
Yeah, that's the most rewarding thing about this. Like, making some money is cool, or having one of your own guys be successful is cool, but I can't tell you how many times that fellas and ladies they've just won an amateur fight, or they didn't even win. They were just a part of it. They hit you up, or they pull you aside and they hug you or shake your hand, and they're just like, this is the greatest moment of my life. Thank you. Or thank you for helping me live a dream. And it's like, what? Like, yo, that's insane. That's just it's the best feeling in the world when somebody comes to you and just like, or, you know, like, I mean, somebody's like an engineer or something. It's like, dude, you're an engineer and you're saying that this ass kicking you just took in a small amateur event is the greatest day of your life. Like, that's powerful shit right there, man. It's the most rewarding thing. And that's the best of all this stuff, is just or a mama or a daddy coming up to you and they're just like, oh my God, thank you for letting them be a part of your event. And it's like, yo, the thanks is to you. You bought a ticket and your kids in there just got the shit beat out of them. Like, y'all are the ones that did something here. I'm just lucky to be where I'm at. Like, but thank you, because it warms the soul when somebody tells you that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's where I like periodically, I mean, so I'm an individual who believes heavy in team. I mean, I hate to say it. I've had some people that got offended that I push a team vibe, and I push a team atmosphere, and I push a team mantra and things of that nature. But I'm like, you know, hey, like if you're not into it, then hey, you're not into it. But I believe you fight individually in the cage.
Yeah.
And the choice at the end of the day, the choices you make in that fight are always yours.
Sure.
So you're always doing it your way. You're always doing it whatever, but never discount the backing, the people that, as I tell them, I said, this is my idea of team. Who took care of your kids while you could go train? Tell me that person is not part of your team.
Yep.
If you're younger and you don't have kids or whatever, and if your parents were the ones who were giving you money or whatever to even give you the opportunity to maybe work a part-time job instead of a full-time job while you're living at home so that you can go train to do this portion that you love, don't tell me that they didn't sacrifice so that you could move yourself forward. So don't tell me that's not part of a team. You know, I'm like, every single person that's on the floor usually has somebody else outside the gym that is making a sacrifice to allow that person to go for their dream.
Yeah.
You know? And then you have the actual people that are in there every day, blood, sweat, and tears, you know, sacrificing for their teammate. Some days it's by trying to kick their ass, and other days it's by knowing that you're fighting in a couple weeks. So it's my time to take my lumps, you know, so that you can continue pushing forward. And it's, you know, at this point, I'm not trying to beat you. I'm just trying to be a good training partner. So I'm going to get beat up in this next week so that you can move forward. I'm like, so like I tell them, I'm like, my idea of team is a way bigger umbrella. You know,
it's not just the people on the floor. It's everybody that makes it possible for those fighters.
It's a way bigger group. I mean, it's a way bigger group.
I feel like the person, and I know everybody throws this shit around, but it's like the person that said, "Oh, this is an individual sport." Like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You are. Believe that there's nobody gonna dominate or do well in this sport that is just at their house hitting a bag. You can't roll with yourself. You can't spar with yourself. You can't do drills. It's like, mommy's got to help, daddy's got to help, coach's got to help, teammates got to help.
Truly speaking, I mean, on one level, they're correct. When you step into the cage, okay,
it is on you.
It's on you. But knowing, though, how many people stand behind you to help you get to that point. Now, same thing. You can either show up for practice or not. That's on you. People can motivate you. People can call you up and everything else, but that's on you. You got to show up. Your team can only help you if you show up.
That's right.
It shouldn't be your team's responsibility to have to PM you every other day to say, where the fuck are you?
Yep.
You know, I love, there's a meme out there that says, if your coach is working harder than you, it's not your dream, it's theirs.
Yeah.
You know, so as a fighter, if if your teammates have to ride your ass to even get you to show up, you owe them a lot, but it's also not their responsibility. If you don't show up for practice, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
If you don't show up to do the work, it's not their fault. If you come to practice and sit on your ass and decide to be a wallflower, and not allow people to push you and motivate you and things of that nature, you're right. That's an individual sport. That's on you. Individually, you fuck that up.
Yep.
But when they are there to help you, that's a team.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're right. When they go into the cage, every punch, every kick, a coach can only give them truly a suggestion of a game plan of what they want to, saying, hey, here's what I think would be a game plan to go into the cage with. Now, how many fighters that either say, you know what, I agree with you, and let's run that game plan. And how many fighters go in and go, fuck it, I don't like that game plan. See, that's the part where they're right. When they step into the cage, it's now their choices. It's their way. It's 100% the whole time. It's their way. And yet their team is always there backing those choices.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, because like I said, nobody got in there alone. Nobody got to get good at grappling by themselves. You can punch a heavy bag all you want. That does not equate into any kind of skill in the ring or the cage. So, I mean, to an extent, they're right. I mean, it's an individual sport because they have to make their individual decisions and they have to hold themselves accountable to those decisions. But that being said,
I love how y'all do stuff specifically. Like I'm a big team guy too, like I feel like that's the best way. And I do like these kids that kind of like they're Ronins, they might train here and there, but they realize what it takes. It takes a team. I like watching your guys and gals fight because you can see that unity, you can see that there's actual love there. And like for you and Melissa, you can tell that y'all are you're truly invested in your athlete. Doesn't matter if they're pro or amateur. You can tell that there is such a good bond with the Dark Wolf guys and gals that fight. Like you just see it. Y'all, I mean, y'all a little loud too and boisterous, but
we've been trying.
But you can see it. You can see it. Like it's just an energy pickup. Like bringing up that time, like Anderson was getting stitches. All your people had fought that night, and the coaches, you'd wrap 6-7 guys' hands and long ass night, and I feel like y'all won like 90% of your fights that night, but it's like here's Shard getting these stitches, and everybody's right there with him. I remember that. Just stuff like that sticks out to me so big. It's just like, yo, that's not even a fucking team. That's fucking family is what that is. Like. Easily, those guys that have just won could be like, well, I'm gonna go out here and talk to some young ladies or go get all this love from kicking ass a little while ago. But it's like everybody is just there, heads down, even though y'all had won like every other fight y'all had won except that one. And everybody just seemed so somber. It's like, man, y'all had like 8 people fight tonight. You had one bad fight. It wasn't even a bad fight, like dude fought his ass off. He just
No, that was a hell of a war too.
Yeah, everybody's just there feeling that. It's just like, man, that's special, it's kind of lost. I just feel like teams aren't tight like that. It's not the norm as so much as it used to be. So it's refreshing because it's just nice to see honor and love and unconditional, it's not. That was a cool ass moment.
And like one of my that was one of my favorite compliments that I've been given. And then there was another one. We were on the Tampa side, and someone came up to us, which is a mutual friend of ours, and came up and said, hey, we're facing one of your guys tonight. And he goes, I just want to let you know that my team tried to pick my brain as to like what could we expect from our guy. And he goes, man, he goes all I could tell him is He goes, they're all different. He goes, they're not cookie cutter. They're not, it's like each fighter is a little different. You know,
Yeah,
some are heavy, some are heavy strikers, some are great grapplers, some are a little bit of both and everything else. And kind of going back to like its own, it's like that's the thing. It's like, as a coach, we're there to help the fighter. You know, I'm never there to dictate to the fighter to say, this is how you're going to fight. Never works that way. You know, like, these are your strengths. This is what we're going to try to build your strengths. And then we're going to try to backfill your weaknesses to make you stronger in that aspect. But we're not going to come in and go, okay, everybody,
we know you're a striker, but your team back, you're going to be a grappler.
You're going to be a grappler. You know,
it doesn't work that way.
You know, and we're only going to run kimuras and, you know, and things of that nature. And so, you know, it's one of those things. And like I said, it was really cool with that one guy when he's like, yeah, he goes, they're all different. Because I mean, I've seen some groups that I hate to say it, they are cookie cutter. When they go in, they believe there's one path to victory, and you can watch it. They're just a mirror image of their coach, or they're a mirror image of whoever's the best in the gym. They're just, you know, let's redo that footprint, let's redo that blueprint, and see if we can, you know, recreate magic in the bottle.
That'd be hard to do with Christian.
Well, but I believe
nobody fights like Christian.
But that's what I believe so strongly, though, that it's that individual spark that's the true fighter, not the techniques they use. It's that individual spark. And if you just shut that spark down, you know, and tell him to be something that doesn't light that flame, I don't think you're going to get very good work out of them. You know, and so, and that's those things. It's like I said, it's like individually, you are an individual, 100%. But here's my best. So what good is a rock band if we all play the same instrument?
Yeah.
I mean, if we go in and we all play bass guitar, it's going to be not really the greatest ensemble of, you know, you go to a symphony and imagine it's all flutes.
Yeah.
You know, you need diversity. You need, each person's got their own flair to it. You need some drums. You need some, you know, and when you do, the music that can be made is amazing. So it's a fine line of them being an individual and yet becoming an integral part to a symphony, an integral part to a team. That you could pluck any one of them out individually, or you can put them together and make something even greater. I mean, and that's,
I personally have never had success training somebody and trying to mold them a specific way. It just doesn't work out. You have to plug into their strengths and kind of, you know, connect with their vibe, their style, because no, at the end of the day, we're all like humans. We're not going to do anything we don't want to do.
Right.
And therefore you're not going to put in the right effort to master it if you're not feeling it. It's just like, just let that clay kind of mold itself.
Let that light shine.
Right info. And it's just it's nice to see that. And that's a good point you bring up about your camp specifically. Everybody is kind of different.
Oh yeah, we got
they have
some that
individuality.
are. Yeah, we got strikers, we got brawlers, we got heavy duty wrestlers, and then we got a select few like super slick jiu-jitsu players.
Hey, I want to point out too, by the way, Alex the other night and Tim. Holy shit, what's happening with these young kids? Both these kids are
oh my God, I know.
They're like so young. They're like they're both of them have less than 2 years, 100% training. And
Alex only has 3 months. Alex has only been training for 3 months.
Crazy. I know Tim's maybe at a year, maybe. But just watch guys that haven't even trained that long, the performances they put on, I was just like, this is insane, man.
Oh my God, Alex was so, I mean,
excited.
Okay, I in training, I use the term a kid at Christmas all the time. I'm like, because that's what I want fighters to feel like. When it's fight day, I want to feel like a kid at Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
The nerves for a kid at Christmas it's not a negative nerve.
It's excitement.
It's an excitement nerve. It's like, fuck, I can't wait. So we're in the back and he's getting ready to go through the curtain. You know, virtually every fighter we've ever had and most fighters I've ever seen do their walkout face first, right out the curtains. He's sitting there and he's getting his vibe going. He turns around,
and
smiles, his hands come up, and he backs his way through the curtain. I was like, at that moment, I mean, I got like goosebumps. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, that was a moment for me. He was having so much fun in that fight, too much fun. Yeah, but he was having so much fun in that fight.
That's so entertaining.
Oh my God.
If we can get a little
control,
they were talking.
On that kid, it was great.
I mean,
he's going to be ridiculous.
To add direction to that lightning is going to be monstrous.
It's going to be so much fun.
I mean,
we knew going into it that Alex was going to be explosive because he is in the gym. He's just like a little bundle of explosive energy all the time. I mean, but yeah, that was.
But yeah, I mean, watching his energy and I wasn't expecting the smack talk.
Nope.
I wasn't expecting.
It was awesome.
He was having so much fun in that fight. Like I said, it's like that explosion when it went off was so awesome. Now to be able to funnel that and direct it,
get it just tighten up. It's going to be so much fun.
I mean,
the next fight's going to be really fun for him.
I can't wait to see that guy fight again.
Yeah.
I mean, that was exciting. And then different people, when they sit down in between rounds, you know, you get a different glimpse of kind of their personality and the like, you know, when they're actually in between rounds. His smile never stopped.
Yeah, like at some points it didn't look good for him, but he never was defeated. He was never out of it. He was
sitting on the stool in between rounds. I mean,
smiling.
He's almost more like counting down. Like, man, come on, put me back in. Let's go. I mean,
yeah. He had that constant head shaking. Like, yeah.
I mean,
it was awesome. That kid was fun to watch. Both of them were great. Tim's a great kid too.
Yeah.
Like, that was a solid scrap. Tim surprised a little bit, huh?
Me too. His whole team. Now it's over, so fuck, we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But they were kind of encouraging, like maybe Tim shouldn't fight, and Mitch was pushing for it, like, hey man, like talking to his other coaches, like, hey, let Tim fight, you know, like let's see what he's got. You know, we have an opponent that hasn't had much training either. Let's just see. And both those kids shined. Like you couldn't. There was some. I'm not gonna call any names out, of course, but there was some other fights on that card. Like I know for a fact these motherfuckers. Golly, these people have been training. Yeah. These people have been training for years and didn't put on the display that those kids who are like less than a year, those kids put on a good clinic. Your boy was throwing nice hand combinations, 2-3 shots at the time. Tim was using his range well with the kick. There was a lot of shit going on. It's like, yo, people that only have a year of training shouldn't be doing what they did. Like there's other guys on that card that have years of training, look like shit compared to those two young kids.
Well, Alex and his brother Joseph, they're in the gym every day.
Yeah.
They're working.
Yeah,
and they're working. They're not just showing up.
If they're not in the gym, they're working together.
Or they're working in the garage together.
There. But the other part is though, is and this is the part I've always, you know. So yeah, Alex has been only training for about 3 months. Okay. Now this is one of those parts that, but like I said, that we've talked about this in the past. I know you, Christian, had talked about this, and we're like, look, we try to be straight up. If we say a person's only got 3 months experience,
they only have 3 months.
That's legit. They truly. And if we say that, you know, that in that private conversation that, you know, look, he's only got 3 months, but he's a gamer. He's you know, or he's been training for a while, but you know, it's, you know, it's gonna, you know, it's not gonna be that high, whatever. So we're looking for somebody. We're always looking for someone that's gonna be that equal fight or maybe a hair
Sure.
above.
Sure.
Because ultimately speaking, I mean, who cares if you beat a bunch of, people that shouldn't have been there in the first place?
Yeah.
This is AMI.
This is about developing.
You want
Yeah.
a fight that means something to the growth of the fighter in a win or a loss. You want something that that you can look him in the eye and say, if you do your work, and if we get a good game plan, and if you execute well, we can win.
Yeah.
But on the same token, if you don't, you can lose. That this fight is potentially within your grasp, that we can either do the work and execute. Obviously, sometimes people do the work, but the execution doesn't happen. Sometimes you see people that it doesn't look like they did the work, and all of a sudden, come game day, you're like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah.
That happens too.
True.
But that's where ultimately say, look, I mean, because I hate to say it, but I mean, just because you do the work and you check all the boxes and you did all the crazy work and everything else, it never guarantees victory.
No.
But at the end of the day, if you do win, you want to be able to look at that opponent and go, man, that fight challenged me, and my win showed me something about myself. Or in a loss, that fight challenged me and showed me something about myself. Now, if you go in there, and so I don't know if you remember one of the old school, he was the Extreme Fighting Championships matchmaker. And then eventually he did a brief stint as a UFC matchmaker, short-lived. But then he also did commentary. And there were fights that would go down, and the dude would get starched in the first 10 to 15 seconds of a fight. And he goes, well, that went exactly the way I thought it would.
Like, why'd you match them then?
Hey, what was that guy's name?
Peretti.
Yeah.
Don Peretti.
But I'm like, holy shit, what? If you thought the fight was going to go down exactly like that, why would you even book it?
Why do you even book that?
I mean,
he's an interesting fellow. We're friends on Facebook, and he went on a whole smear Joe Rogan campaign at one time.
Oh, really?
He's very interesting human.
Yeah, because I remember those early days of extreme fighting, and then like I said, there was a brief stint where he was also matchmaker and commentator for the UFC. And
he would give what's his damn name? Jeff Blatnick. He would give Jeff Blatnick shit for not having the right terminology. And I just remember thinking, man, Blatnick should just reach over there and goozle.
Well, because like I love
Peretti was actually a decent kickboxer. He wasn't a kickboxer, but Olympic gold medalist Jeff Blatnick could have just been like,
yeah. But I mean, but it's like there's times where you'll see matchups that are like that, and you're like, why? Sure. Why is a dude that's like 6-1 going up against a dude that's like 0-2? Like
it happens. I mean,
it happens.
At the end of the day, you can't. I mean, you can justify anything, but it's just like sometimes it's injuries. Sometimes it's just like, hey, at the end of the day, this guy needs a bounce back.
Yeah.
Well, this works for me. Now, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. The only thing that sometimes if I do a bad matchup or what looks like a bad matchup is if I'm feeling any kind of guilt or anything, it's like, well, at the end of the day, I gave everybody the info that was necessary.
Right. Yes.
Everybody's grown. We've talked to the coach. We've talked to the athlete. If you've been presented all this shit and you're like, you know what? Sign me up to get my ass kicked. That's like, okay, well, you agreed to it.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
but sometimes it's necessary, but like, I don't know at that level how that was possible back then. It's just like you have the best promotion. You should have the best fighters.
Well, like I found it interesting. Different promotion, not Combat Night, different promotion. But we had a fighter who's no longer with our team. He's now I guess you would call it retired. He checked it off his bucket list. He got a couple good fights underneath him. He's one of those guys that he was an engineer, and
he was just doing it for
this one. And there's a lot of these people that, I mean, their life's plan is not to become a professional fighter, man. This is just stuff they enjoy. So he gets a couple wins under his belt, and then we get an offer, and so he's a 2-0.
He's a white belt in jiu-jitsu.
Like truly a white belt in jiu-jitsu. And we get an offer for him to face a brown belt in jiu-jitsu who's got like a record of like 6 and something. And at first we're like, nah, I don't think so.
And he's like begging. He's begging.
Oh, no. But at first we're like, yeah, I don't think so. And it was interesting because like shortly thereafter, we're seeing some passive aggressive posts on from the other on Facebook being like, this is AMI. What does a belt rank of a person matters to AMI? Things don't. Look, on paper, which is what we have to judge things off of originally to make our first assessment. Yeah. If things just don't look right, I mean, then what's the point? I mean, the goal is not to have him go in there and get smashed just so that somebody else can pad their record. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, or fortunately, it was one of those though where he puppy dog eyed us and was like
a week.
It was like, I can beat him though. I can beat him. And then Christian's giving me the guilt trip and the puppy dogs. I was like, all right, it's like a Wednesday night. I said, okay, go home. We're not talking about it right now. And when you come back tomorrow, tell me the game plan.
Tell me how you win, how you beat him.
Not I think I can.
Tell me how
tell me how you do. Yeah. So we all came back in and had our conversation. And we were like,
he had us all the game plan.
We all had the same game plan. And we're like, all right, let's go for it. And the fight fell out anyway. But
yeah, the other guy bailed. After all the shit talking, the other guy bailed.
Well, and like one of our guys just got shit talked for a fight that he never even got offered. Because and again, this is one of the reasons I tell my fighters, I'm like, look, we are here to be your buffer. I mean, my job, okay, your job as a fighter is to fight, do always the best you can. My job is, if I have to, I'm the asshole. My job is, if the promoter doesn't like somebody, let him not like me, because you're the one that's there. It's kind of like a referee. A referee's there to step in when they think the fight is getting out of hand to save a fighter. A fighter always wants to fight. Okay. But a referee is there to be able to say, no, this fight has gone further than it should. I'm calling the fight. This guy's getting teed up or whatever. And the referee steps in and the fighter can be like, man, I was still good, but the fighters, the ref stopped the fight, whatever. Okay. I'm like, we're that buffer for you. So if something comes up and gets thrown on the table that
doesn't make sense,
we know you're nursing an injury, or we know that you're this or that we politely decline and say, right now is not the best time for fighter X. And we may not even go to you. I said, there's the one part we've told the fighters. I will never tell you will fight, but as the coach of the team and the like, we will say this fight does not make sense. But we'll never tell you, I'll never come up to a fighter and be like, hey, you're fighting, be ready. We always talk with the fighters about their matchups and things of that nature. But if we got a fighter that we know in training just jacked up a rib or a foot or an ankle or a knee or whatever, and somebody comes to us and is like, hey, do you think I can get so-and-so on a card in 2 weeks? We're going to be looking at it going, I know last night, he just popped a rib or whatever. Ain't going to happen, Yeah. And so that is interesting though, because we had a fighter getting called out in social media for a fight.
He was screenshot and put it into our fight.
He's like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is going on? Why is this guy shit talking me all of a sudden? Because he was out with a rib injury. There was no way he was going to be fighting.
And is this something recent? I think I know you're talking
a little bit more recent.
Yeah.
But there's a fight because he's like, what the fuck's going on? He's like, I didn't even know I got offered the fight. It's like,
oh wow.
Well, because he got legit injured in his last fight, and it's been taking him a little bit to get back. He's not able to train much right now.
He's popped into a couple training sessions, but
and then he has to bail early because he's like, oh fuck, my rib.
Right. But
I know the situation you're talking about.
But yeah, it's been interesting because he's like,
He's like, I don't even know this dude. Why is he calling me out?
He's like, call me out. I didn't even know I was like, dude, because again, we're that buffer so that in an event, there are some unscrupulous promoters out there. Like, we're your buffer. Like, blame me.
Sure.
I mean, I'm a big boy. I'll take that heat.
Just saying, my coach won't let me.
Yeah, I'm a big boy. This is part of my job.
Y'all do fantastic. I mean,
I'm here to play the heel if I have to. I'm here to play the hero if the opportunity presents itself. I'm like, but that's my job as coach. You know,
the honesty is great. The honesty is great from y'all's camp. It's not a pride thing. Y'all do you think with your mind and act accordingly. You know, you guys understand the game. So I definitely appreciate the honesty.
Well, like we've been to, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot, you know, probably more than we have with a little bit more. I mean, because I've worked a little bit with a couple promotions, never officially, but just helping out here and there. And then obviously we did one of our own, we did 2 shows on our own through Christian's Origin League, but we did one fight in California on the Indian Casino. And afterwards we're at the after fight party and somebody comes up to us and goes, "Hey, did you guy get paid yet?" And we're like, no, not yet. Like, they go, "You better not let that motherfucker leave without getting your money." They're like, "Because if he leaves this bar, you'll never see your money." Like, so we cornered them at the bar.
Whole team cornered him at the bar. We like surrounded, we're like, "Where's our motherfucking check?"
Yes.
He's like, "Oh yeah." Like,
I hate to talk about him because he's passed, but I don't know if you're ever familiar with WEF. A lot of the UFC guys started kicking around. That was Jamie Levine, World Extreme Fighting.
Okay, yeah.
yes.
But man, everybody came through there. But he was notorious for finding the back door at the end of the night. Yeah. And we had a very similar thing. We knew this was going to happen, so we went about 8 deep right to his office before the last fight was over.
Yeah.
There was one way in and one way out. So we left with a check right away. So
yeah. Well, that's where, like, because once they legalized it in California, then we started doing quite a few, you know, actual legal events at fairgrounds and things like that. Now, at the time period, California did not recognize amateur MMA. So technically speaking, AMI, if it even existed, truly didn't exist. You were fighting professional MMA.
Yeah.
All rules of the unified rules of MMA, no shins, elbows, you know, all submissions legal, you name it. But you were just fighting an 0-0 or 0-1 or whatever. You were fighting a guy just like you. But what was interesting though was every fighter was drug tested, every single one. Like, we went to an event. So in California, the commission is the one holding your check.
Yes.
They have
the
2 checks for
has
you.
to pay the commission, everything up front.
So they have to put a bond.
They have to put a bond.
They have to put a bond up, and then the commission is there physically with 2 checks in hand, a win and a loss, your show money and your win money. And then, so they sit there and like, there's one fighter, he just got done fighting. He comes back and he's sitting there. He won. He's clean. No issues there, but he can't piss. You don't get your check till you clear your piss test. So, I mean, and this was an 0-0 fighter making a debut. I mean, that's how, I mean, like I said, everybody got tested on that card. It didn't matter who you were, not a championship fight, everybody got tested. And he sat in the back for like an hour because he could not piss.
Yep.
I mean,
multiple times. Same shit. One of my guys, Stephen Aiken, he fought Bobby Brents. This was in Tampa, I think. Now these heavyweights, man, they go at it, goes the distance, brutal bloody fight. And you know, he's just exhausted, gets to the back, and like you're saying, it took, that commission was so mad because they couldn't leave.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were just yelling. They're like, all you got to do is piss in the cup, or you're trying to hide something.
Right, yeah,
like,
exactly.
shit, dude. Like, do you know what dehydration is?
Like,
Like,
no, man,
dude,
because of my
you're talking
adrenaline
heavy-
dump and the fight I just did, my body's locked up right now. I mean,
he finally pisses, and it's the most brown piss you've ever seen. It's not even like a shot glass full.
right.
And they're just like, yeah, and they're bitching. They're like, you can't produce more pee. It's like, what are we doing right now? What are we doing?
Right.
You should have just come with a syringe and did a fucking blood test right here. Like, instead of us sitting there, we probably sat around an hour and a half, 2 hours before he produced that. Just chugging water, the sink and the shower, just running, trying to convince his mind to piss. They were so mad. These old men could not go home. It's well after midnight.
Wow.
They think like my chubby guy's on cocaine or something. Like, dude, he can't piss right now. Like, he just fought his ass off, you know.
Dude, I joke all the time. I usually have to take a piss before we walk to the cage. So I'm like, dude, victory pisses are the best piss. But after the fight's over, I don't gotta go piss no more. I mean, I like it, win or lose. I mean, there's times where literally, if we got 4 guys fighting, I'll have to take a piss before the first fight. And I mean, I'll be like, my bladder's screaming, but we're walking in like 2 minutes, and I'm not. And then we'll walk to the cage, and then I won't take. I mean, and I'm just the coach, and I won't even have to go piss until after the last fighter's done.
Yeah,
you know, it's like and when you're the actual fighter, I mean, your body goes into that. I mean, it knows we're fighting. So right now, taking the piss or shit's the least on your body's mind. I mean, it's survival mode at that moment.
So when y'all are cornering guys, how are y'all's true feelings? Like, I watch y'all and your demeanor and stuff like that. Like, you're nice and calm, technical, but like for me personally, when it's my guy fighting, like, I'm putting on the greatest act ever.
100%.
But over there, like, you're saying, like, you feel like you can't piss shit. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna shit myself every time. Especially if it's a tough fight. I'm just sitting there just like giving sound instructions, all stone faced. But inside, or whoever's in the corner next to me, I'll look at him and be like, I fucking hate this shit. I hate this shit so bad.
I was joking with the boys. I'm like, you guys are going to give me a fucking heart attack one of these days. So don't you know I have high blood pressure? You can't do this to me.
Well,
because they're our kids, you know, they're all of them.
Well, I truly care about, because I know how much that fight means to them. So it means a lot to me. I tell the group quite often, like literally, I just told the group over here just the other day, I said, dude, I love training. I said, if you guys came to me tomorrow and said, Coach, I don't think I want to fight anymore, our relationship doesn't change.
Yeah.
If you still want to keep training hard and everything else and coming in, I'm like, to me, our relationship has no bearing and no change whether you choose to fight or you choose not to fight. I'm like, because I love every aspect about this game. I love the training aspect. I love everything else. I'm like, so literally, if the team came to me tomorrow and said, I don't think we're going to fight anymore, but we just want to train and everything else, I'm like, our relationship would not change at all.
Yeah.
We would still be exactly the same people and everything else. The fact that you want to train, man, I love being there to help them out, you know, and I want that win as badly as they want that win, you know, when, you know, and so, like you said, I mean, inside, I'm usually a wreck. I mean, my nerves are usually so shot, you know, going into it, because I know the work we put in. I know in that moment, the things they're saying, like they're going into it, going, fuck, my knee's hurting a little bit, you know, these last week, you know, because of whatever. I mean, fuck, I woke up wrong the other day and my neck was jacked. I mean, but I mean, yeah, inside, man, I'm dying, but part of the way I coach, part of the way I teach, you know, and I've had a lot of people that have come through me that I think liked the fact that I put everything on the table. I mean, I teach them not just the hows, but the whys. I love fight philosophy. I love fight history. We talk history as much as we talk philosophy, you know, and strategies and things of that nature. And then I also divulge what I think as a coach, that because you got to be careful. Some fighters, and this is why, again, it's very individual. I can't coach any fighter on the team exactly the same way. Some fighters need you to be that coach that's in their face, tough love. You got to be on them.
Christian, you can't do that with.
I can't do that.
You got to leave him alone.
I have to vibe a whole different way. And, but some you got to get in their face, some you don't. But the one thing that I found as a fairly consistent thing is if I'm nervous, how much worse do they feel? If I show them my nervousness, then they start to doubt maybe, am I thinking that we're about to lose this thing? Which is not the case. My nerves have nothing to do with their win or loss. My nerves simply have to do with, I know what that fight means to them. I know how badly they want it. And in some instances, I know how badly I want it for them. When a fighter just came off of Carlos Barrera, shout out to Carlos. He's one of our OG fighters. When he joined Dark Wolf, we knew him before then. Carlos was 0-3. Fuck, I wanted that fourth fight to be different. Man, the nerves I felt on that one going in,
Was that the last minute triangle too?
Yes. No. Okay. But I knew, because, originally he was like, man, I just love fighting. I don't care if I win or lose. And then this time he's like, I want to win. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's go for it then. Let's do that work. Let's get after it. Again, it's one of those things you got to keep coming back to it. If a fighter's not showing up and if they're not doing the work and things of that nature, you kind of lose the ability to complain about anything. You got to show up. You got to do the work. You got to do everything else, man. And Carlos was he's doing that work. He's putting in all that extra stuff. And I mean, going into that fight, I was like, fuck. I mean, the pit of my stomach just, I knew how badly he actually wanted it this time and how badly, because I mean, it's what I'm friends with all these guys. I mean, I'm twice their age, and and I don't know. I mean, I don't try to be a father figure to any of them. I don't think that's a role that necessarily, I mean, I try to be the best coach I can. I try to be, I love training. So I consider myself to be one of their training partners as much as I consider myself to be one of their coaches. Right. Because I love, I mean, man, I haven't thrown hands in a little while because I get headaches now from, even hitting a little bit. So I haven't thrown hands with them for a while, but I mean, I'll hop on the mat. Sure. Get any grappling sessions. We want to do body shots, things of that nature. My jaw I've had my jaw partially dislocated about 4 or 5 times, and my TMJ on my left side is trash. So if I eat a tough steak, the muscle will start to knot up, and I'll have a migraine probably later that night or early that morning. So I have to kind of pick and choose what strikes I can get into, what kind of like boxing rounds or kickboxing rounds or the like. But I mean, as a coach, I mean, I'll get in on the mats and we'll throw some takedown rounds. We'll get some grappling rounds. I'm just limited on what strikes I'll do. But 2 years ago, I mean, I mean, fuck, Christian almost knocked me out 2 years ago. I mean,
he did knock you out.
Shut up.
He did knock you out. You went out for a second.
Hey.
You took a knee.
Proud papa.
That's what you claim. You say I took a knee.
You just don't remember it.
I know. I felt so bad. Christian hit me with a combo at literally, I knew my eyes were open, but I was blind.
For a second.
I literally knew my eyes were open. I could experience blinking, but the room was pitch black. And then when everything started to come to, my vision was black and white, like straight up black and white. And then my hearing was like a stereo that's not in tune, just that white noise. And then as color popped in my vision, it was like hearing popcorn in my ears. And then my hearing came back and the world came
And
color
Christian's
again.
checking on Christian's like, Dad, you okay?
I'm like, get the fuck off of me. I'm like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just knew at that moment somebody was all over me, and I'm like shoving Christian away. I didn't know it was Christian at the time. I'm shoving him away, get the fuck off of me, things of that nature. Because, fuck, man. I mean, Christian and I, in most of his fights, we would have probably 30 to 50 rounds of boxing, kickboxing, or MMA in preparation for his fights. I mean, I probably wore as many black eyes as he did getting ready for his fights.
Nice.
Can't do that anymore.
No, like I said, anymore.
Can't do that anymore.
What was the combo that he got you with?
I know the first punch. I know. I'm pretty sure it was a left hook that came in after, but I couldn't tell you. As they say, it's the punch you don't see that gets you.
Right.
And I was pretty proud of myself too, because up until that day, I've never even taken a knee. And I've taken my lumps. I've taken my shots, things of that nature. And I mean, Melissa says I took a knee. I don't remember it. I just know I wasn't actually put down, but I was out on my feet. I was out on my feet. That's for sure. No ifs, ands, or buts. I was out on my feet. That was a definitive. And that's the only time in my life of all the fights I've ever done, of all the sparring rounds I've ever done. And back in the day, sparring was fighting. I mean, let's be real about it. We were too dumb.
Sure.
We were too dumb, too high strung, too much testosterone. I used to get fight jitters going to training. I mean,
yeah. Oh,
I'd be in the car going, oh fuck, I feel it in my stomach.
Dry heave a little. Like about to get out and get your bag out of the trunk, and just kind of like, because you know you're leaving that bitch with banged up shins and a headache, sore jaw. Because like you said, I feel like then I'm not like that anymore. I'll be quick to be like, yo, this isn't a pissing contest. I don't need to get hurt today.
Yeah.
Let's keep it down.
I show the fighters.
Back then it was fighting with pads on.
I still have a soft spot in my left shin from damage probably 20 years ago. Yeah. And they're like, what? I'm like, check this out. And I could take my thumb and dig it into my shin and pull it out. And it looks like my thumb is still there.
I can do the same thing. That's funny as shit. You literally bury your finger in my shin. It's disgusting. Yeah. Man, and the injuries, you just like I'm glad these kids train a little smarter nowadays, because back then it was just I mean we didn't talk about concussions and stuff, but I know I've had to have them, because you just hear about the symptoms like needing to turn the lights off, or being nauseous, or just having a headache that makes you throw up. And and the one that I used to hate this one the most is like this eye here would just uncontrollably twitch. And it was just the most aggravating thing in the world. It literally took years for that to wear out.
Melissa's got that right now.
I got the whole side of this side of my face. I'm pretty sure it was from an elbow.
Oh shit, that's horrible.
Just from jiu-jitsu.
Worst part is everybody thinks she's winking at them. But
I know that's an elbow.
Yeah.
So we got class starting in about 10 minutes. Do you have any up and coming things you want to shout out there? You
guys got an event coming up in a couple weeks.
Oh my God. I'm waiting to hear from your son on May 21st as well, on one or two people's.
I'll hit him up.
Please do. Because one of them is, it'd be nice to lock that down today. But combat night, that's my life. Combat night's my life. I got a great woman. So when I'm not with her, it's just MMA. I'm not with my guys training. I feel like we just sat here and bullshitted. I thought we were going to talk about like other things. It's easy to talk to y'all and bullshit about martial arts, but man, combat night's what I got going constantly. That, my gym, reality martial arts, and just trying to get through this crazy world. All I give a shit about anymore in this life is just putting as much good out there as possible and being as happy as possible. And that's all I really care about.
I hear you.
Awesome, man.
We got some great things on the horizon for Combat Night. I think this year, by the end of this year, there's just a lot we can't tell people, but we have some great things in the works. Yeah. And I think we're climbing.
You guys are climbing.
You guys are doing awesome.
You guys are definitely climbing.
Some of our favorite events to fight at. 100%.
So man, we love having you guys. I did want to touch back on what I was saying earlier about how you guys. I really appreciate your guys' gym specifically. You're in my top list for sure, because
appreciate that.
Even if you're gonna, which sucks for me because it's my job, obviously. But even when you give me a no, I know that it's no fucking bullshit. There's a reason you're telling me no, or there's a reason you don't like a matchup. And I just appreciate that. I just want to say that to you, whether you cut this out or not. I'm saying to y'all, I appreciate above everything in this world, honesty. Yeah. You can't get mad at honesty. Like if your kid's been training 3 months, your kid's been training 3 months. If you think that this guy's too tough for your guy, then that guy's too tough for your guy. Like you being that buffer, don't ever feel guilty about that. I don't mind anything as long as it's honesty. So yeah. And I mean, I'm speaking for Mitchell and Ramsey too. We love you guys. We love having y'all as part of the events. And May 21st, I hope we have several of your people on that card.
We're trying.
Get the big boy in there. That big man is
Drew.
Want to get that guy in there. Like that heavyweight pool is so shallow. Like let's get that guy going if y'all are ready to run with him.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
He's also got work stuff and stuff, so we always have to kind of work around when he can train and when he can be ready. Because obviously we don't want to send anybody in there underprepared for sure.
Yeah. Oh, we know what we're getting with a dark wolf fighter. We know they're going to be skilled in every. They're going to have a little something in every facet.
Yeah.
And we know y'all don't fucking put people in there that don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
So.
Our guys like to bang.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and likewise, we've talked about it quite a bit. I mean, as far as
we appreciate you, big time.
We appreciate you quite a bit as well, because we know that again, talking about honesty, we know that what we're getting from you comes from a good place.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's honest. Again, just because people tell you news you don't want to hear doesn't mean it's not coming from the right place.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've come to really appreciate about you. Is that again, you are extremely honest. I appreciate and at the same time, we know that when you're feeding us information and giving us things that again, it's not being shined on, it's not being embellished, it's not being done in a way just to be beneficial for you guys. We know it's coming from a place of honesty and sincerity.
I'll walk up to the line of maybe trying to be like, come on.
Yeah.
But it's always gonna be any info I have, I'm gonna give that. If there's a surprise, it's usually not anything I'm withholding, it's been withheld from me. So we try.
Yeah.
Man, this was fun. If y'all ever want to do it again, hit me up.
100%. We gotta do it again.
A little deeper.
I feel like we have so much more to talk about.
Oh yeah. I can talk all day.
Like we were just like shooting this shit. Like I was expecting, specific questions. Like this was cool though. If y'all ever want to do it again, let me know. I'll be glad.
Welcome to Submission Coalition. We pretty much just shoot the shit.
Originally, this was going to be called Lobby Talk.
Yes.
Because this is what we used to do. Like after training, we're sitting on the couches in the lobby of the gym.
And then one of our students goes, "You guys should do a podcast like this."
Yeah.
We get into these deep, either philosophical or historical, MMA history.
Yeah.
Because he's like an encyclopedia.
Well, and I'm a big geek nerd, whatever you want to call it, man. I mean, I just this stuff excites me, just like it excites you. And when you see passion, from people and stuff like that is just so cool. I mean, and that part I appreciate. Well, awesome, brother. Definitely. Let's set a time. We'll get past a couple of these fights coming up, and then we'll do it again.
Sounds good, guys.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Y'all have an awesome day, man. Thank you.
All right, you too, man. Thanks.
Bye-bye.